What's going on, everybody? This is Living in Arizona Now, and today we're going to talk about the water situation right here in Arizona.
That's right, guys. With everything we've been hearing about the drought crisis and the lack of water in Arizona, we decided to go out there and check out one of the main tributaries for Phoenix, which is the Salt River. So that's what we're going to do here, is we're going to head to the Salt River. We're going to go up towards Saguaro Lake, Canyon Lake, show you some of the lakes, the reservoirs, even the Verde. Let's see what's going on. The last few weeks we saw that they've had a flash flood warning. That's because they're releasing the water on the dams upstream. And what we want to do is we want to find out where all that excess water goes once it leaves the main reservoirs. So it's possible we have a catchment problem.
And if you look behind me here, you can see that the floodwaters are up. This here is the Granite Reef Dam at the Salt River. We're going to go upstream and see what's going on there, but lots of snowmelt coming off the White Mountains right now.
And the idea of catchment is to retain the water, whether it's from snowmelt or flash flooding. That's the main idea here. Do we have enough catchment?
All right, so where we're at right now is actually the confluence where the Verde River meets the Salt River.
And as you can see on the map, at Fondee Sutton is where the actual rivers meet. You can actually pause and go back there if you want to see exactly where that is on the map.
Yeah, if you look behind me, you can see people are getting in the water here with stand-up paddle boards and also these inner tube kind of boats, these dinghies. They're going to take them down and ride those rapids. Check out those rapids right there.
Yeah, that's what the Salt River is known for, is Salt River rafting, tubing. People do this in the summertime. We're basically coming up into the months when that becomes a very popular activity to do out here in Phoenix. If you guys go on to Google Maps, you can type in Salt River tubing. You'll see the recreation area. They take you up to Pebble Beach recreation area, which is just outside of Bulldog Canyon, and then you float down for a couple miles. But this group here is actually downstream from that recreation area, and they're just taking advantage of the Verde River releasing its floodgates. That would be Bartlett Lake and Horseshoe Lake. Now you come out here around June, July, you're not going to see that much water in this area, so that's why it's important that we're talking about how are they catching this water that they're releasing from the reservoirs. From here you would end up seeing this water at the Tempe Town Lake. And then if the Tempe Town Lake is too full, they send it down the Gila River tributary.
You can see it's actually mostly the floodwaters coming from the Verde. So they've released Horseshoe Dam, Bartlett Dam. The Salt River is very slow moving, so it's the Verde River that's pumping all that water in.
So now that we know there's lots of water coming off the Verde, that means the area of the Mogollon Rim where the headwaters are up above Camp Verde, they have been getting a lot of flooding lately, as you've seen on the news.
Yeah, and out here at the Salt River, people do camping. Lots of these camp spots right here in, I think this one's called Coon Bluff.
The best time of year to go out here is going to be in the springtime, although you would have to watch out for critters, of course, because as you see, with all this vegetation, that's where the critters, the reptiles, the rattlesnakes, the Gila monsters, and, you know, the insects, scorpions, tarantulas might be hanging out. But I wouldn't let that stop you. As you can see, it doesn't stop these people from going out there. It's just saying, hey, those critters are there. And when you're out here, you can get in the water. People do some fishing. There's also going to be wild horses that you'll see kind of roaming around, swimming and frolicking in the water. But yeah, it's a nice place to hang out. Also, some people do some rock climbing.
So definitely the flood release and the dam release was happening on the Verde up there at Bartlett Lake and Horseshoe. Not so much along the Salt, which would make sense. You don't want to do both tributaries at the same time because you might overwhelm and swell the system with as much snow and rainwater. But soon they'll do the Salt, and you'll also see the same flood, and the Verde will be the slow one. But right now, Salt River's the slow one.
And what's making it slow is the fact that they're just retaining the water behind the dams at all the tributaries. Now, the four that you are going to see as we keep pressing north here are going to be the Canyon Lake, Saguaro Lake area, and then we were not able to go quite beyond that to Apache Lake, but if you did, you would also go one up above there, and that's where Roosevelt Dam is. So now the big lake that we're at here, this reservoir is Saguaro Lake, much bigger than what you saw at Granite Reef Dam. So Saguaro Lake, very full. This is basically the last big dam of the four as it starts heading towards Phoenix. So once this one's full to the brim, they have no choice from this point but to release it down the Salt River towards Phoenix.
All right, so we've made it here to Saguaro Lake finally. And if you look right over here, we've got the Desert Belle.
And you can actually do a cruise on that. It starts at around $25 for 80 minutes, but they have a variety of different tours. They have the live music cruises, wine and live music, craft beer and live music. Just go on their website, Desert Belle Cruises, and you'll be able to make a decision about what you want to do on Saguaro Lake with the Desert Belle.
And if you look over here, you can see why they call it Saguaro Lake. Look at all the saguaros. Yeah, I also want to show you some different cactuses that look like saguaros, but they're not. This right here is a barrel cactus. And then if you look right here, that's a hedgehog. If you look right behind me, you can see people are actually walking that trail. That goes to the cliff jumping area.
And of course, if you do decide to do cliff jumping at Saguaro Lake, always exercise extreme caution in doing so.
Oh, and by the way, you guys may notice I'm in a new vehicle now. I went from a Ford Raptor, that was a great vehicle by the way, to this Hyundai Palisade.
Since I'm living in Mesa now, it was difficult to drive around a big tank like a Raptor from place to place, but this right here does not handle off-roading as well as the Raptor, that's for sure.
Nice car though.
So what we're doing now is we're actually headed out towards Canyon Lake. We have to go around a bit towards Apache Junction and then up again. And the name of the road is going to be called the Apache Trail. We're going to Tortilla Flat after this overlook.
And we've now arrived here at Canyon Lake. You can see this Canyon Lake vista. Look at this beautiful viewpoint.
Now some of you might be curious which one I think is more dramatic in terms of landscape and views. Saguaro or Canyon. I would say Canyon Lake definitely has some amazing cliffs and some hidden gems tucked away in the lake area. And as you can see, the windy road eventually leads us to Tortilla Flat. Now this area did burn down back in the 90s. They've since rebuilt it. This area is at risk of flooding, fire, and other sorts of natural disasters. It's just a very kind of wild wilderness out here, truly, along the Apache Trail. The road's actually closed. That's why you can't go to Apache Lake from here. You have to go around towards Globe. But it is a very rugged terrain out here where the Apache Indians used to live. People also like to go out here and explore looking for Jacob Walt's treasure. They call it the Lost Dutchman Gold Mine. So you'll see that at Tortilla Flat. But once you get out beyond Tortilla Flat, you better make sure you've got all of your equipment and gear in case you need to change a tire or whatever, what have you, because it's going to be just you in the wilderness out there. There's even signs that say once you go beyond this point, you know, it's all on you. You're on your own, buddy. You can see it's paved for just a little bit, but as you keep progressing about a few miles down, it just turns into dirt. It's not too bad, but again, no cell phone signal. You're out in the boonies. There's no civilization out here. So people have to keep that in mind. But it doesn't stop people from going out here. You'll see there's going to be people out here in their mobile homes, camping, doing off-roading. So it's one of those kind of places. It's actually called the Tonto National Forest. That's what area you're in here. But keep in mind, to the right is mostly the Superstition Mountains, mountain range right there. And now the dirt road begins. The main dirt road on the Apache Trail, totally doable. You can do it in something like the Hyundai Palisade. Now what ends up happening after that is you have these roads that are on the side. We call them Jeep trails out here. And it is recommended if you're going to drive on there to have a 4x4 at the very least. But still, when you start pressing on those Jeep trails, it gets very rough and rugged, and you do need to have some experience. And you can see the canyon ravines that meander around here. Those are tributaries that ultimately lead into the Salt River, because we're right next to Salt River Canyon, actually.
All right, so here we are at the Apache Trail. This is an area known as Tortilla Trailhead. Just take a look out here. but you can see this is the Tonto National Forest. You can see there's lots of cactus up here, a variety of different species actually, not just prickly pear and agave. But then in the distance, if you look out, you can see all of these canyon ravines. And when the water flows out here, it goes really hard and fast, and that's what carves out all these canyons you see in these mountains. You can see right here is an agave. It's actually been knocked over. Maybe it's because of old age or wind, or who knows, it could have got struck by lightning. But underneath it, you can see some fresh new growth of the actual agave plant. While hiking out here, the types of animals you might see, something like a coyote, a bobcat, a mountain lion, lots of deer are going to be out here, in particular white-tailed deer, but also some javelinas, maybe a desert tortoise, jackrabbits, little bunny rabbits, lots of different birds. You'll see everything from a cardinal to a hawk, maybe even an eagle out here, but lots of wildlife out here in this area.
And one of the reasons why you get so many flash floods out here in the desert is because the ground is actually very hard and compact. You can see it's got rocks there, granite, but also the dirt is like a caliche or even a clay. When the water hits, it basically stays on top of the surface and just runs down the side of the mountain into a wash, and then all of that rainwater eventually collects in the wash, and that's what creates the flash flooding. It's because of the hard soil that we have here. Now what we're going to do is actually head down towards Apache Junction, towards the Superstition Mountains. I told you guys in the last video that I wanted to show you around the area of Apache Junction where you get these beautiful views of the vistas around Superstition Mountain and even towards Gold Canyon. This is kind of how the living is out there. So after we showed you what the reservoirs on the Salt River look like, how do they actually divert the water around the city? And that's why we're going to show you now the canal system.
And you can see right here, this is actually part of the canal system attached to SRP. So the Salt River water, once it hits that Granite Reef Dam, it turns into canals. And this is just one of many canals that you'll see across Phoenix. This one here just runs right through Mesa down towards Gilbert.
No, you cannot swim in those canals. I know that's what some of you might be thinking. Now, here's something I would like to say about the fish in there. I've seen some 4 to 5 foot long, I don't know what they are, carp or whatever, but I've seen some 5 foot long fish in those canals swimming. Could even be some catfish. Now, as far as fishing in those canals, I don't know the rules behind that. You'd have to Google that and talk to the local authorities, but I would imagine you would at least need a fishing permit.
Yeah, again, here I am at another canal. This one is in Gilbert, coming from the Salt River through Mesa. So the canals off the Salt River project extend all across the Southeast Valley. And if you guys want to see more of these canals for the Colorado River, you just go to the west side where Lake Pleasant is.
Lake Pleasant is called Central Arizona Project, which is attached to the Colorado River. So that's a whole other tributary coming from the west to the east. Also, they have this reclaimed water, all that sewage water. They usually treat it and then they send it off to the golf courses or some of these other lakes and ponds you see around the city. Some people will say, oh, why are they using those lakes and ponds in the golf courses? Well, people don't realize that's reclaimed sewage water. Don't touch it, don't drink it, don't swim in it. Now, what we just showed you was what happens in the winter time and leading into early spring. But what we want to show you next is the monsoon season. This is rain that's totally different than what we get in the winter because it's electric storms, thunder, lightning, and we're going to show you some of that. But that's really where the flash flooding begins. You can see the water just building up on top of the soil.
So here we are in the middle of July. It's currently 74 degrees. We're up in North Phoenix right now, and it's beautiful rainy temperatures all weekend. We need more of this. We're gonna dive in and talk about what's going on with the water situation. So as you guys know, usually in the summertime, in July, we average 110 or more. Right now, we're getting a lot of monsoon activity. If we can continue this, that'll be good for us. But unfortunately, the likelihood that we continue these monsoons, very unlikely.
And this here shows you one of the problems with the way the system in Arizona is set up, is that all of this runoff that you're seeing during these flash floods here in Phoenix, where does it all go? Are they catching it into a reservoir? Well, no, they're not, because once it goes past the Agua Fria or downtown Phoenix, where's the lakes and reservoirs to hold all this water? There isn't very many. So it's a lot of wasted water that just kind of runs off, and it ultimately goes into the groundwater, which does feed the aquifers. Now we have to realize that also has a great utility because that's where we get a significant amount of water from. How effective is the groundwater system if a lot of that water just kind of evaporates when the heat comes in the summertime, right? Because it's not able to penetrate that hard soil to get down into the aquifers. Also, another thing to keep in mind about those aquifers, as you go around Arizona and into the desert, you will see places that say things like Seven Springs or Cahava Springs. Those are places where the water actually comes out of the ground and creates a spring. We even saw those up on the Apache Trail. And those springs are nature's way of keeping the desert alive. So I hope this documentary provides some insight into the water situation here in Phoenix and across Arizona. All those lakes you're seeing around golf courses, those are not fresh drinkable water. That is reclaimed sewage water that they're simply using to water the grass and bring some vegetation to the valley. And on that note, guys, that's going to conclude this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and you can watch some more of our other videos. We'll put a playlist to the off-roading and also our most recent video.